Hello and welcome to MagicGatheringStrat. This is Tobias bringing you a new deck tech video for my new brew. It's not so new, it evolved from the Kaboom Beast deck and I call it Rakdos Prison because Rakdos Charm is the win option here, and it all is enabled by Ghostly Prison, and all the inhabitants, all the inmates of my prison are pretty wacky, so Rakdos is a pretty good name for it, I guess. And the reason for me to do this deck was the Suture Priest. I very much liked how it performed in the Kaboom Beast deck, because it is such a nice combo with the Forbidden Ore card. And for those of you who didn't watch the Kaboom Beast videos, Suture Priest has a trigger that causes your opponent to lose life whenever a creature enters the battlefield under his control, and Forbidden Ore card makes mana of any color, and the drawback is that your opponent will get a 1/1 colorless spirit without flying. Without flying is important, and thus he will lose life if you have a Suture Priest in play. So this is a neat little combo. It fixes mana, it makes tokens, it brings creatures onto the battlefield. My opponent will lose life. Ghostly Prisons prevent these tokens from attacking me too much, and they buy some time. And because my opponent is very likely to have more life and more creatures than me, Timely Reinforcements is a card that buys me some time as well. And if Ghostly Prison isn't enough, I have Windborne Muse, which is a creature Ghostly Prison. And the key element here is the word flying, because it can fly over my Forbidden Ore card tokens. The only drawback is the 3 toughness. It just dies to Lightning Bolt, which is pretty sad, but otherwise it's a nice card. And another prevention card, another prison card, is the Battletide Alchemist. It's a cleric, as the Suture Priest is a cleric, and it will prevent X damage, where X is the number of clerics I control. And it will trigger for any source that deals damage to me, and it will trigger for each Forbidden Ore card token separately, and more important, it will deal for the third option of the Rakdos Charm separately. So I don't get dealt damage by Rakdos Charm from my own creatures, because Battletide Alchemist will prevent each of this damage all by itself. So this is a nice card, at least in this deck. I have a little hand disruption in the form of 2 Sword Seizers, and I have Blood Artists because there will be so many creatures on the battlefield, at least if it goes according to plan. And as long as Collected Company is such a popular card, I intend to play against a lot of these decks, and Blood Artist combines very well with board sweepers like Volcanic Fallout, which cannot be countered, and Blasphemous Act, which is very likely to wipe the board for 1 red mana. And Rakdos Charm I already mentioned. It's especially great in this deck because it exiles cards from target player's graveyard, it destroys artifacts, and the third options, which I never used and I always wanted to use, is great in this deck. And with all these cards, with Blood Artist, with Suture Priest, with Ghostly Prison, with Windborne Muse, and with Rakdos Charm, we are very good equipped main deck versus Splinter Twin, because these are all hate cards. Even the Battletide Alchemist, these are all hate cards for Splinter Twin, so Splinter Twin should be a pretty good matchup. And the last main deck card is Boros Reckoner, because Boros Reckoner just kills your opponent if he's at 13 life, and you can cast a Blasphemous Act, because then the Reckoner will deal 13 damage to the opponent. And of course he's pretty good in killing off Forbidden Ore card tokens. So this is the main deck. I am confident that it will be a good deck. I don't think it's such a good deck as Kaboom Bees, but it should be cheaper aside from Cavern of Souls. But Cavern of Souls is not necessarily important for this deck. You can just cut it and play something else. And if you cut Cavern of Souls, this gets a very budgety deck. All of the components cost very little tickets. Most of them don't even cost a ticket themselves. And I guess if you have the mana base, if you have some fetch lands, if you have Blood Crypts and Bloodstained Mires and cards like this, if you have the white, red and black mana base, then this deck becomes very cheap because Forbidden Orchard is a very cheap card and everything else is pretty cheap in the main deck. And the sideboard is looks like it because of the Cavern of Souls, but you can have your own sideboard, of course. I play Aethersworn Canonist to shut down combo decks like Storm and decks like what's it called? The one that Ad Nauseam. Ad Nauseam will be shut down by this, and it's a cleric and they cannot counter it, so it should be nice. Grand Abolisher works nicely against Blue Tron and all other control decks that like to play in your turn, and it's a cleric as well, but I'm pretty sure you can find fine substitutes for these cards. And Soul Warden, another cleric, is in against Burn and against creature heavy decks like Elves and well, it's sort of a good card, but sideboard is not tuned yet. I might replace it in the future. I have 2 more hand disruption spells to help me against control decks or decks that like to kill my board a lot, and I have a Doomed Necromancer, which is a cleric as well, to bring creatures back from my graveyard to the battlefield. And the last 2 cards are Graveyard Destruction. I don't have sideboard cards against Affinity because I have 6 Board Sweepers and Ghostly Prison main deck. I don't have cards against Splinter Twin because I run very much cards against Splinter Twin main deck. I don't have too many hate cards against Burn because I have some life gain in the form of Blood Artist and Timely Reinforcements in the main deck, and I have some prevention, and I have Soul Warden in the sideboard. I don't have too much hate cards against creature heavy decks because again I have Board Sweepers and Rakdos Charm will be pretty good. So far I did not win many matches with this deck, but I think it's a nice deck. It's certainly not a tier deck, but it's a fun deck to play. And I hope you can pick it up and have some fun, and I'm going to post some videos with it. Okay, see you soon, have fun, bye bye.